Like to correspond with us, and we thank Ed and Peter. Here's the way in which you can do that through the United States Postal Service down the stretch. Mark and Mike, Capital District OTB 510 Smith, Schenectady 12305, or electronically at viewermail@capitalotb.com. While we wait a moment here, as we wait for Ian Wilkes from South Florida, let me ask you, partner, briefly, I was quite upset about this last year, and I'm not a huge Bob Baffert fan. But that's neither here nor there. Baffert was eligible last year.
Yes, he was.
Did not get on the ballot. What was the big change between last year and this year for the nominating committee?
Well, that's a wonderful question. I mean, I was in the camp that he deserved to belong there last year because that's what the rule reads.
Right.
So that's, that's it.
All right. Well.
Yeah.
To introduce the first of four guests this morning, he's batting leadoff. I'm not sure the last time he did that, but he's batting leadoff from South Florida. Here's Michael.
A very, very good trainer. Welcome to this studio this morning, Mark. And I'm speaking of Ian Wilkes, who will have Captain Candyman Can in the Fountain of Youth today. So, Ian, if you're there, welcome to Down the Stretch here in upstate New York with Mark and Mike.
Oh, thank you.
Good morning,
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
We're glad to have you, Ian, and it's good to speak with you again. We'll start with Captain Candyman Can. A little later, I'll ask you for an update on Warriors Reward. But Captain Candyman Can was ready to go at a good time last year, August in Saratoga. Ian, how did he train as you prepared him for his debut?
Horse trained well. No hiccups. Everything went well. Shipped him up to Saratoga. Everything went to plan. Got a race in him. He was ready to run, and boy, he jumped out and really ran big.
It was a marvelous debut, Ian. And as we sit here and look at his past performances for the race today, the only blemish, if you can call it that, on the lines here is the Arlington-Washington Futurity. I think our audience would kind of like to know about that race.
Yeah, I think I had a horse. He didn't run bad. He got roughed up a little bit at the end of the race. But we only got beat 2 lengths, and no excuses. We weren't going to win the race that day. But I think the polytrack is probably not his favourite surface, and I'm not taking anything away from the winner that day. But I just really feel that polytrack is not his best surface.
Ian, I've said what I'm about to say a couple of times on this show, and I'm speaking of his race last year in the Kentucky Jockey Club. One of the strongest images that I have from the 2-year-old season last year was Captain Candyman Can in the Kentucky Jockey Club. He was so keen going into the first turn. The engine seemed to be on full throttle throughout, and we're going to be looking at a piece of this shortly. And yet, there he was in the finish at the wire. So when we look back at the Kentucky Jockey Club, Ian, how did you view that race at the end of his season last year?
I viewed it as a very good race. It showed me that I had a horse I felt really belonged where we were, and showed me that around the ground I ain't worried about that. It just said to me I've got a little bit of work to do. I had to wait for the horse to mature a little bit, and I had to get him to relax. Is the key. Didn't matter where he was in the race, whether he's in front, whether he's a length off, whether he's 5 lengths off. I just got to get him to relax and just enjoy being where he is. And a lot of that's come together, which you see in his last race. He relaxed good, where Julian was able to take him back off of the lead, come around them horses. I thought that was, he learned his lessons pretty well.
And we just watched him finish third there, Ian. You spoke about working on him to get him to relax. Over the wintertime, what things did you work on with him to get him to settle somewhat?
Well, it was a lot of, galloping him in company, galloping him on the inside, galloping him on the outside, putting him behind horses, putting him in front of horses, and then working him with horses around him, putting him in behind, putting him in front. I just wanted to get comfortable and just understand that he doesn't have to run as hard as he can the whole way to start with.
Well, when you brought him back, it was the Hutchison, and we're going to be looking at that. And for our audience, he will be number 3 in this race. You picked the Hutchison as the start of the season. First question on the Hutch, why did you pick that race?
7/8 is a perfect distance. To me, I had to go back I'm not worried about him running a route of ground. I think he can do that. I know he's got talent. I know that. But I had to just execute right, and I just felt like it was easier to teach a horse to relax, go on one turn versus going 2 turns. And I love the stepping stone of going the 7/8 to the mile. And then I can look at a 1 1/8 race after this. But that's the reason. It's just, it helped me to teach the horse to relax was the 7/8.
And here we are watching it. They're going down the backstretch, heading to the far turn. You must have been pleased with the things that took place here that day, Ian.
Very pleased. The thing that pleased me most is that he was very responsive to Julian.
Yeah.
He listened to him when Julian said, "Okay, let's take back off of this on the inside." Oh, they were only going 23. It's not like they were going too quick. And to take back and listen to Julian, that was a big stepping stone forward there.
Ian, how was he after the race?
Good. He's fine. Not a problem. Come out real good. Actually, horse has done really well since that race. I'm very pleased the way he's done.
Well, this afternoon you're in the Fountain of Youth. By almost common agreement here, at least in the East, the toughest prep so far on the Derby Trail. How are you with the post position? For our audience, you're number 9. And do you have any special instructions for Julian this afternoon?
I'm fine with the post position. The only thing I really didn't want to be tucked down on the fence, because on the outside it gives you a lot more options. I want to see him relax. I was on the inside. I'd hate to be caught up and get, just shut off down on the fence this trip. I don't need that for in this trip. And instructions for Julian, that's why I'm riding Julian. He's a smart rider. He knows the horse, he works him, and he knows what we're trying to do with him. And the main thing is the same thing again. As long as he listens to Julian, what Julian wants to do, instead of him running his race like he did in Churchill, I'll be happy at that.
Ian, you've also got a very promising 3-year-old named Warrior's Reward in your stable. He was unraced at 2 last year. We saw his coming out party, a very good race at Gulfstream. Any particular reasons he didn't race last year?
I had him pretty close to running, but he's a very big horse. He's nearly 17 hands, and wrenched an ankle. And I talked to Mr. Miles, who's a tremendous owner. That I said, Steve, let's just give this horse some time because I like him. And so we just fired his ankles, give him some time off, and it just worked out. It was a little later in the year, so he never got back to the races until the end of January.
For that particular race, Ian, you picked 1 mile. Any specific reason for starting at 1 mile?
He's a big horse and just doesn't get tired. And he didn't have the 6 furlongs at Gulfstream is a tough distance because of with a horse that doesn't have a lot of speed, natural early speed. It's just hard. They get frustrated trying to catch up sometimes. So I just give him a chance to go 1 turn mile, just to give him a chance to let him get his legs and let him finish off a race, and he did that well.
Ian, for our audience, he's a Medaglia d'Oro, and a lot of us remember that horse as a really, really good runner. And the image I have of Medaglia was he was a pace prompter or a pace setter, but you've got a guy here that's got a good